Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. Here are some more celebrities and athletes you didn't know were Lutheran. Theodore Geisel, also known as Dr. Seuss. Ashley and Mary Kate Olsen. Chief Justice of the United States, William Rehnquist. It's satisfying to think that we have something in common with these famous people. This week and next week, as we lead up to Reformation Sunday, we are learning about some famous, or perhaps I should say influential, Lutherans throughout history. And while you may never have heard of today's influential Lutheran, I'll have to say he is one of the most important Lutherans ever, and he exerted tremendous influence on the church. His name was Philip Melanchthon. Let's start with his early life. Melanchthon was born in 1497, so he was a contemporary of Luther himself, and in fact, his work with Luther is what he is famous for. More about that later. When Melanchthon was only 11 years old, his father and grandfather died within 11 days of each other. When he was 12, he started studying at the University of Heidelberg, where he studied philosophy, rhetoric, and astronomy and astrology, and became known as a scholar of Greek. I'm sure at age 12 we were all doing that too. They denied him a master's degree because he was too young. So he went to Tübingen, where he continued humanistic studies as well as jurisprudence, mathematics, and medicine. When that was finished, he moved on to theology. It was during this time that he figured out that faith was more than just scholastic knowledge of God. During all this, he had come to Luther's attention and was invited to be a professor at Wittenberg alongside Luther. This created one of the most significant partnerships in world history, for these two together are the primary drivers of the Protestant Reformation. Luther was known for fire and lighting the spark among the common people. Melanchthon was calmer, more reasoned, and wrote in ways that spoke to the educated class. As the Protestant Reformation was going on, Luther was summoned to the Diet of Augsburg, where matters of faith were to be discussed and decided. There, Luther presented a document defending Lutheran beliefs called the Augsburg Confession. It was mainly the work of Melanchthon, based on other things Luther had written, and it became the most significant document of the Protestant Reformation. It's in a book we still use called the Book of Concord, and it spells out the basics of our Lutheran understanding of things. And again, Melanchthon was the chief author. You see, while Luther was the creative genius behind the Reformation and who was the firebrand of faith, Melanchthon was a gifted, systematic theologian who could take Luther's ideas and put them down in an orderly and systematic way. As he did so, he provided an orderly basis for Lutheran doctrine. Now, there were times when Luther and Melanchthon didn't fully agree, and often Luther was frustrated with Melanchthon's willingness to compromise for the sake of peace. Luther himself seldom backed down from any fight, but they almost never spoke ill of each other, recognized their need for each other, appreciated each other, and liked each other. After Luther died, Melanchthon was involved in several conflicts with other religious leaders of the day and staunchly defended Lutheran views. And if his work as a reformer and theologian were all Melanchthon was known for, that might be enough. However, he was also regarded as a scholar whose works had lasting influence on scientific life in Germany. His clear and simple writings were used in schools for more than a century, and he developed an education system for teaching children based on their ability. He was thought of as a theologian who could systematically organize religious thought so it could be well understood. He was a moralist, putting into words what Luther meant by law and gospel and calling people to a better moral life. He was an exegete, meaning he could translate the scriptures from Greek and communicate what the scriptures said. He was a historian and a preacher, not only connecting religious history and political history, but he also attempted to study and write about the history of Christian thought. As a preacher, he developed the method and style of preaching used by preachers for centuries after that. In his spare time, he wrote another catechism and manual for young Christians. And if you aren't tired yet, he was also well respected as a professor and philosopher. Melanchthon stands with Luther and Calvin in his importance for the Reformation. He understood and taught that gospel meant the free gift of grace through faith in Jesus Christ. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.